So we have turned Thursday nights into propaganda night.
Oh my goodness gracious. What was it this time? No, propaganda night.
Because we have to get all these people on board for leading.
Faith can feel like hearts and butterflies until someone lights a match and burns it all to the ground. Welcome to the Burning Butterflies podcast.
The sad thing is that there's abuse of every kind within the church. But the spiritual abuse is the stuff that just
What's a place there shouldn't be abuse? Like, there just shouldn't be abuse in a place that claims to.
Well, it ruins your soul. If you're new here, we suggest listening to our prologue episode first. This is the story of two women's journey through toxic church culture and spiritual abuse, all while finding healing in the end.
Sometimes it's just the facts, and if you get offended by it, that's a you issue. And if we can't be mature enough to have these conversations, even if some of the topics are difficult, then shame on us.
Honestly, of all the men who were in the eldership training, there were two that had lagged behind and didn't take any of like the next step or master life or anything like that. It was Barry and it was Schroeder. But Schroeder had already started way back when Schroeder was given the worship team. When we had that big meeting and Melissa Etheridge got pissed off and she left the church and all of those things, right? Like, Schroeder was told, you have to go through these things.
Yeah.
So,
and he was making his way in true Schroeder form, right?
Yeah. Like,
slow and steady wins the race.
He was doing it in like just kind of like, yeah, whatever. It's not a big deal. I'll get to it when I get to it.
I got things.
Yeah.
I'm getting to the next one. I'm working on it. I got a lifetime. Yeah.
Yeah. But Barry had not done anything.
Not at all.
And so we're pushing Barry hard. Like, he's still preaching, even on Thursday nights when we are doing all of these other studies and all of this other stuff. Barry still gets the microphone on stage.
Yeah, he's like now the MC of it or whatever.
Yeah. And there were some nights where he still got to preach a sermon and everyone else just kind of like went and, did other studies in other parts of the building, but he still got to preach a sermon. So it was really weird.
I feel like that was though, like he was given a group and he was still like getting up and teaching. So yeah. I don't know that it was like the service was going on and he was preaching and everybody else was going to these different small groups. I feel like he was giving an opportunity to stand up and teach to a smaller group. And ultimately that was like Tom's way of having him practice preaching, because I remember having a conversation with Tom about how weird it was. Like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
Like, you're supposed to be having a small group and everybody's sitting around in a circle or in a table and people are talking and there's a facilitator, but it's not like if you went to the women's group, like Charlotte was standing in front of the room with everybody sitting in their chairs and she was quote unquote preaching her message, right? Like, it was like any other Bible study that you would go to. Like, everybody was sitting around the tables, somebody was facilitating, but it was a group effort. Where if you looked in the sanctuary where Barry's group was meeting, everybody was sitting around in a circle, but he was standing up talking to them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was weird.
It was weird. It was weird. It definitely looked like he was but I, like, now that you mentioned it, I was like, oh, I remember talking to Tom about that. That was one of the issues in many of the conversations.
Yeah. And I guess I just assumed he was he was preaching. But I do know during this time, yeah. And during this time, we didn't have to live stream it.
Yeah. No, because it was his small group that was meeting in the sanctuary. And for you to look at it on the outside looking in and be like, I don't know why they were still preaching a service when everybody else was going to small groups, because it was supposed to be a small group.
Yeah.
But he was learning how to preach. This is how Tom orchestrated that.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to make it okay for him to stand up in your small group. And that's weird. And that's weird for Tom. Like, Tom would never let that happen, right?
Yeah.
It was weird. That was weird. But that's what was going on.
Especially because, I mean, like we've talked about, you have to go through like facilitator training.
Yeah. Yeah. All the things you have to do, Barry did not.
Yeah. So during this time, Tom presents, here are the men that we're getting close to the end of eldership training. And so here are the men who are still in training. Because remember, like, Justin had started doing the training, but then he was like, work is too much with COVID and everything. I can't do this. And I mean, they were expected to do homework and all of this other stuff. So he's like, yeah, I'm out. And a couple of other guys dropped out too. And I'm sure there was other men who hung on, but the key main players here are Bill Nye the Color Guy, Schroeder, Chimney, which I guess maybe Schroeder had quit at that point, because I know he didn't finish. I don't remember.
Might not have. He did not like the pressure he's an artsy kind of dude, really laid back. He did not like the pressure of the leadership, the mentality that was being pressed upon him. And also, like, it was causing problems in his home and in his marriage.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Which is what happens because he's trying to join a cult, and the cult is trying to be like, you have to give us your entire life and eat, sleep, and breathe the cult. And he's like, whoa, dude, I just want to play some music and praise the Lord. And, so definitely I would say he probably wasn't there at that point.
Yeah. Also, Steve had, from DJ and Steve, he had started, but then and I don't know if he had stopped going to eldership training before they decided to leave the church. But it is around this time that they decide to leave the church as well. So really you have Tom and Pastor O'Reliable. You have Bill Nye the Color Guy, Chimney, Brock, Barry, and then you have an old retired guy, and you have a guy who he serves all the time. This guy and his wife I think they have served in every single ministry there is at one point or another. And they're OG. Come as you are people. Like, they've been there longer than I have. And then is Froggy still going? Or is he's dropped out at this point?
Yeah, I think he went to like 2 of the meetings. Like,
which is like, you fought so hard to get this. Why would you not like?
And honestly, I don't even. Oh, okay. Because he wanted to go, and I honestly feel like 1 or 2 meetings he went to, and it may have been 6. I don't know, but he went to a handful, less than 5. Let's say I don't think he made it through more than 5, and it was a problem, right? Because what are these guys doing? Like, he fully believes. And I guess I'm just having this thought right now. Like, he fully believes in the lie that he's been told by his dad, right? So how we all thought, like, Tom was, like, inspired by God and spent all this time, like, seeking the Lord and came up with these, like, amazing messages, like this, like, almighty prophet, right? Like, but when we sat and we broke it down, we're like, all he did was play the guitar and
and read from pre-written notes.
And yeah, he wasn't in his office ever. Like, he wasn't, like, none of that was true. He wasn't seeking the Lord and spending hours in meditation and getting this word from it wasn't happening. Like, he had.
And he wasn't serving the body. Like, he was calling this guy who served all the time. He was calling Bill Nye the Color Guy. He was calling some of the old guys in the church. They were going out like, oh, Pastor Tom, like, it's terrible. I broke my foot and I need to move this weekend. And Tom wouldn't show up and move you.
Right.
He'd send a herd of guys to come do it for you. He might make an appearance and carry a couple boxes.
Yeah, so that you thought he was there and he was doing something.
Yeah, but then he's finding an excuse to peace out.
Yeah, so, but you know that same belief that we had, like, we're sitting here killing ourselves trying to do all this work to come up with stuff that's Tom approved, you know, God approved, I'm sorry, you know, like.
Same thing at Come As You Are.
The right things for, like, women's ministry. Like, we're trying to do this and putting in the legwork, and it's killing us because it's so exhausting. And then Tom's sitting there looking like it's miraculous, and then he just does it so simply. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, we've talked about that on this podcast. I think Froggy truly believes that he's supposed to be like that, to be like his dad, right?
Yeah.
Like, I just am. Because I think I am, therefore I am. And so I don't need to. Why are these guys going through, like, they're like, it's beneath him to go through all these books and do all these studies and sit and have these conversations because these people don't know what they're talking about. Like, and how stupid it is. And then they want to be like talking about this stuff. Like, it was a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
and so because he lives under the delusion that I don't need a mentor, I don't need to sit through a Bible study. I know what the Bible said. Like, he would say stuff like that.
Yeah. Because Tom would say stuff like that.
Right. So, and it's okay for Tom to go to these things because he's leading it. He's not there to be taught. And for somebody like Froggy who thinks that he doesn't need to be taught, he should be leading it. Like, he has no patience or ability to sit and participate in something like that. But he would, and so he lasted. I mean, honestly, I think he went to 2 and then he thought it was so stupid. Yeah. Like, why do I need to do this? Like, and the fact that there's homework, like, and there was work that had to be done. And he's like, but I know what the Bible says. I don't need these guys to tell me, or I don't need to talk to them about what I'm thinking God said. And so he would go in and then just try to correct people.
Yeah.
Right. Like, is how I see that playing out. Like, and so I know he barely went. I know after all of that, like, pissing and moaning to, like, why didn't you include me in the eldership email? Yeah. I deserve to be there. He went to 2 and peaced out.
Which, I mean, honestly is very, I mean, even Tom would do that. Like, he'd get upset. You never told me you were doing this. No one ever told me this was a thing. And then he'd be like, you know, show up twice. So we have talked to a couple people who were in these eldership trainings, and they were what you would expect them to be of what you just said. Tom was there to lead it. So they might read something in a book, but then you get to listen to a 30-minute sermon about how that person's wrong, and here's why Tom is right.
Right.
Because Tom doesn't read. So he didn't vet any of the material that he's putting out there to these men. And as this goes on, the concept of accountability is brought back more and more and more.
Right. And you're somebody who is a dictator, and you're trying to lead men to be your equal counterparts. And let's just say that wasn't going very well.
Yeah. Well, and so everyone goes into this thinking eldership, like, and I really honestly think Tom was like, oh, well, we need elders, just like a hurry up and fix a problem, because of, like, when the beer ministry and all that whole group of people left, one of their main complaints was there's no accountability. And
Like
so
he's just trying to slap a Band-Aid on stuff that people complained about, not realizing
that these men are going to take this and take it seriously. And
yeah,
so they're seriously discussing church policies and all of this stuff. And Tom is like, whoa, wait, why are you, don't touch my stuff. Don't touch my stuff. And so I know at one point in time, Chimney and Tom got into a knockdown, drag out argument about the fact that no one holds Tom accountable except for quote unquote God.
Yeah.
Tom has the Holy Spirit. Therefore, Tom does not need a human to hold him accountable. But every other human in the church, even
has
though
the Holy Spirit and needs somebody to hold them accountable.
Yeah. And so I know this is where Chimney starts getting really frustrated with the whole process because he's like, this is not right. This is not right.
And he's that type. Like he's the whistleblower type, which is like a great type. I'm not saying anything negative.
Yeah, no, not in a bad way. He's like I wouldn't even call it like a whistleblower. I would call it more like, I don't even know a word. Like someone who's going to stand up and be like,
he's willing to say, that's not okay. Let's reconsider that. Like, did you mean this by when you said that? Like, because that doesn't seem like how we should be doing things. Like,
and he does it in a very kind way. He's not going to be like, no, you're wrong. And da. He comes at it of like, okay, let's talk this through. Let's discuss.
Well, and he has a lot of experience working in groups of people with like nonprofit organizations, like working with organizations that are not for profit, that have these type of meetings all the time, like that are actually doing things.
He's
used to working with.
He serves on the board
of
nonprofits.
Yeah, he's used to coming in and working professionally with people in this capacity. And then you have, Tom trying to like be like, we're going to work at this capacity. But really all he's trying to do is just, appease some rumors. And so this person's like, this is how it's done. And he's like, no, I don't really want that. So it was, you could imagine, right?
Well, so this is the time where, we're starting to argue about leadership and things like that. Tom kind of presents like, here's who's still in the eldership consideration. And, people have kind of like icky feelings about some of the men, but like no one is saying anything at this point. People are like, well, why Barry? Why Brock? Like they're bringing things up. And so it is decided that we need a leadership structure within the church aside from the elders. And so it has always been like just kind of different people you have so many different people running all these different ministries. And so now instead of a meeting, and I think this is where this comes from. I think Tom realized you get that group of men with all of their opinions. He's never had that many men who will voice their opinions in a room altogether.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have like the leadership meetings that we do every month, but those are a joke, right? Like it's more like you show up, you report to Tom, he tells you yes or no on things, and then you go about your way. Very rarely did we ever make a decision or have a conversation about anything. Yeah. And so they're having these conversations. And I think Tom realized if we're going to like have these men be over ministry, like how is this going to work? Am I going to have these eldership men and all the ministry leaders come to leadership meetings? I don't like that. That's too many people. Right.
Well, and he's got, and I do think that Chimney's playing a very big role during this time. Like we weren't there, we don't know, but we're just looking at like the dynamics of everything and saying like, we know Tom's MO, right? Like he got himself in over his head with this whole eldership thing. He was just trying to shut people up after the beer ministry guy left and he got called out in front of everybody. And now he's just trying to make it look like we had these structures all along and this was always the plan and those people were crazy, right?
Yeah.
And then he's got Chimney like actually holding him accountable to these things. And so I feel like he's probably, could you imagine, like, just put yourself in that position where you were like, oh, we're going to have elders, it was a thing. We're going to do it. And then all of a sudden it's like people are taking you seriously. So you're having to like fake it till you make it. And then you have this one guy just keeping you accountable. Well, you got to have a structure. You got to have a structure. You got to have a structure. How's this going to work? How's it going to work? How's it going to work? And he's got like no idea and all this pressure.
Well, and then on top of that, they're trying to work this program. So one of the activities that they have to do is they all sit in a circle and one guy sits in the middle. And everyone basically critiques him, tells him, here is your thorn in your side. Here is your, what makes you unapproachable or whatever. Things that you can work on about your character so you can live above reproach.
Yeah.
Everyone takes a turn. It gets to be Tom's turn. He's sitting in the middle and everyone stares at the floor. No one wants to be the one to tell Tom, hey,
here's your flaws.
You have some flaws. Chimney's the one who speaks up.
Yeah.
And that's how the whole argument over accountability came up. So we have to have this structure. We have to have something. So Tom presents it to us in the office as though Chimney has done this at a previous church. And it's this color level. So essentially, if we were to draw it out for you, it looks like a pyramid scheme. You have one person and then they have people underneath them and they have people underneath them. It looks like a pyramid scheme. But every level is a color. And so we just called it the colors. Oh, right. This is when we did the colors.
The best part about that is that, yes, it totally looked like a pyramid scheme. But Tom kept saying, but it's really upside down. So you have to turn it around because I'm actually at the bottom. So it's an upside down pyramid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the person at the top is Tom. The person
as the
pastor, as the senior pastor, head pastor, whatever. He is at the top and then everyone else is under him. So they start putting these people into these levels, right? So and all of these ministries are put underneath these levels. So we have 6 main things, right? You have departments. Yeah. You have administration. So that's like the office, finance, ordering supplies, all of that kind of stuff. Then you have outreach, which is like the food pantry and the big summer park event and anything that we're doing that involves the community, right? Any of these little things that are being done that everyone just kind of goes off and does on their own. Now they're going to be centralized and under one thing. We have discipleship. So this is all ministries that are teaching ministries. So men's, women's, children's, youth. Bible studies and small groups fall under this as well. Then you have fellowship. So anything that we do that we come together as a church family. So the picnics and the potlucks and all of that stuff, right? Then you have worship. So this includes the sound booth, scheduling the sound booth, scheduling the part of the sound booth that I had been in charge of scheduling, like the running of the slides and all of that kind of stuff. That originally fell under that. And then my job originally fell under administration, the marketing and media department. Well, as we start adding things in, wherever we got this from, Tom said it came from Chimney. Chimney later said, no, Tom brought this to us. So, but now I'm thinking back, here's a live thought. real time right now. Remember when they came back from you guys came back from California, and the children's ministry director said she was now over all teaching ministries? And she was even, because she came back and she's like, I'm in charge of youth and children's, and even Pastor O'Reliable has to answer to me. I'm wondering, because I know you guys didn't learn this in California because you did the whole Rick Warren thing, and these colors are not Rick Warren. But I'm wondering if this was something that came up.
Yeah. No, that's interesting because that was exactly what she said. And that's, I never thought about why she would have said it in that way.
Yeah. And so for all of us, like, she came back and we're like, you're full of crap. Tom would never put you, blah, 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 you know, whatever. But like, no, 100%. I think this is something Tom had thought about for a while.
Yeah.
For a long, long while. And I think because the children's ministry director, she was a very assertive woman. She had great leadership skills. She's very articulate and talented in that way. And so I think he looked at her and he thought, yeah, I can put her in charge of this stuff.
Yeah. I just really wonder like where it really did get something that we haven't been able to find. I mean, the color system is not uncommon to like organizations that do things and put them into like, I mean, color coding is a system in itself, and it's used within organizations. But this one it was different. Like, we've gone online looking for things like it. And
because we honestly were like, okay, what book did he get this out of?
Yeah. And so it came from somewhere. And so who knows if it's something he just had in his back pocket or where it came from. You know, I mean, we really don't know. But we just know that, like, I thought forever it was Chimney brought it from his old church, like, because
that's what Tom told us in the office.
Allow us to believe that. Yeah, interesting. I don't know. I mean, these are all interesting to think about.
And this went over about like a fart in church to a lot of people, and so it was really convenient. It was confusing, and it was also like, well, I've been doing this ministry for a decade, and now I have to answer to someone over it. Like, was I really doing that bad of a job? How come I wasn't considered, you know?
Yeah. You have to really like think about the fact that there's been no structure other than Tom and then everybody else, and everybody else is doing their stuff with no direct like leadership necessarily. Like, everybody really is their own leader, and you're all leaders under Tom, you know, like, in a sense. Yeah. So it's like, and then all of a sudden now we're going to try to plug people into these 12 boxes on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and then hold to it, because I feel like half the people were like, this is great, we need this, and we're doing everything they could to try it, and it was lost on everybody else. They were like, huh? What?
Yeah. It sure was convenient that when people started getting upset, everyone thought it was Chimney's idea.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it was very interesting that Tom now had it on paper to be like, I don't know, go talk to your direct supervisor.
Yes. No, that's what it was. And so we start putting these things places. So wherever he gets this from,
right.
He said on multiple occasions, well, we can only have like 4 or 5 things under a leader. So if we need to add another column, we need to add another column, because each person can only have like 4 things underneath them. Yeah. So it gets to the point where under administration, it gets to be a lot. I actually was happy with where I fell under administration because I fell under Chimney. He put Chimney in charge of administration. And I was like, yes, I've been working with him. Him and I have a great working relationship. Like, and he sees the vision that I see, and I feel like I can go to him. He has the knowledge of like, I can go to him and be like, here's what I want to do. I don't know how. And he would be able to help me do that.
Yeah. I remember that being a really big deal and being a positive thing for you. Do you feel like, am I remembering this correctly, or am I just making this up in my head? Do you feel like it also, like, there was like, maybe not tension, but there was a lot of like peace finding for you to like really segregate your job versus like all the stuff you did, you had to put into now like 4 different categories because you did so much.
No,
Like,
I was in every single category.
yeah.
So,
and I feel like there was a lot of conversation that went on at this time of like, oh, okay, well, are you still going to do this or not? Because this is actually this person's, like, I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, I really need our listener to understand this was a complete restructuring. Like,
yeah.
and this was an in-depth, like, even just if we just look at what Amanda did at the church and you go, okay, Amanda, you do this. And we go, wait, you're in this yellow box and this is your now place in the structure of the church. But this thing you used to do doesn't fit in that yellow box. It actually belongs in like a green box over here or whatever. Like, these are the types of conversations that were going on, not just for Amanda, but everywhere in the church.
Yeah.
So every door, every window, every box, every stone was being unturned at this time, and the church was being completely evaluated, exposed, and restructured.
So, and I know I'm going to get the colors wrong. The
I
color doesn't really matter.
Doesn't
But
matter.
so like you had Tom, and so he was at the top, and then the lead of all of these columns that I said, the admin, outreach, discipleship, fellowship, and worship, those, I'm pretty sure we were green.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're green, right? And then under you, so like under discipleship, you have men's, women's, youth, children's, Bible study, small groups. So Pastor Old Reliable is over men's ministry. So he is like blue, and then like Charlotte is over women's, and you and Brandy were working on taking over women's, so we had like Charlotte's name in blue, and then in small letters underneath we had your name. But that didn't get put out to everyone. That was only like, there was an office version of this, and then there was a public version of this. But we printed these out and handed anyone who wanted a color sheet could have a color sheet. So you saw, and so like you said, you have all of this, like, I might be, green in this area, but then I'm blue in this area, but then I'm red in this area. And so I'm trying to juggle all of that. Well, through all of this, it comes to light that I do so much media-wise that I need to have my own column. So they move me out from under admin and make me my own column. So I originally wasn't going to be green. So Tom hands out, the papers, and he's like, you fill in names where you think people belong, So I'm writing names down. He had put Bill Nye the Color Guy, he wanted him to be in charge of like outreach events, and then he also wanted him to be in charge of like some fellowship stuff. And so I had put like, I was trying to put people down, but like in all the green levels, the top levels, I was putting men's names because we had just had a huge thing, like not even a year ago, that only men can be elders. So,
and I think it's something to point out before you finish telling this part of the story is that you are like the keeper of all things, right? So like your version of how these things happen and what takes place is like this insider view. Like you're the insider view, right? So like, and I'm sure people have heard that in the way we tell stories. Like I was not involved in these inner circle conversations in the office, but you'd be there on like a Tuesday having like the inside conversation with 3 people that nobody else in the church ever had. And I would always laugh and joke and say that if I know something, that means it's trickled through everybody and everybody should know. Because by the time I'm finding out, like I'm just enough in, but I still stay on the outskirts enough that I'm like, hey, if I know, everybody, you have no excuse, right? And so the important thing about that in this particular situation is that we were on this huge campaign since the beer ministry family left, that like we are going to have elders. Like it's elders,
Yeah.
elders, elders. The propaganda going out into the church is elders, elders, elders. And in true come as you are fashion, we have now pivoted and we're not talking about elders anymore. It's now colors, 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 colors. That's the new propaganda. But in Amanda's world, she's still elders, elders, elders. Okay, elders, and we're adding on colors. Like,
Yeah.
we're still doing this elder thing. Like, you're not dropping the pieces like it's put out to the rest of the church, where I kid you not, like how many times would something be said in church and we would run with it like a ADHD kid on crack, and then the next day we're talking about something else.
Yeah.
And we're running with that. Like, you know, that's how this church operated, was whatever dopamine we were chasing. And just as soon as you got propaganded with something, you'd be propaganded with something else the next day. And people like went along with it.
Yeah.
I
Well,
went along with it. I'm an ADHD kid, so I'm like, cool, elders. Now we're talking about colors. I'm so focused on the colors, I forget about the elders.
Well,
but to you, it's all one thing, and we're like, and you're bringing up like, how do we get the elders on this list? The elders are supposed to be on this list, and you're putting the men up there. Like, I get it.
Well, and you know, like you said, we pivot so much. So if you don't like something, it's just like, okay, just, you know, let's just roll with it for a few weeks.
Around 5 minutes, it'll change.
Yeah, exactly.
Weather.
And so you really only get upset when like we pivot away from something that you were super excited about.
Yeah.
You know? And so we have these colors, okay? And I'm like handed this paper as like, here's all the gaps we have. Fill in the gaps. So I'm filling it out. So then I take it back to, and he gives it to everyone in the office, right? Everyone gets one. So I take mine back to Tom. And I'm like, here you go. And I set it down and I go to walk out of his office. He's like, whoa, 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 hold on. And he's like, why didn't you write your name up here? Because I left who would be over me in media. I left it blank because I'm like, if it can't be Chimney, no other man in this church has the know-how, has the capability in order to lead something like this.
Yeah.
But it was made very clear, Chimney is overseeing admin. That is where his strengths lie. That is where this church needs him, is overseeing admin. So I don't know who to put there. So he's like, why didn't you put your name there? And I was like, because it's a leadership position and that's a man's position. I still was drinking the Kool-Aid of like, no, men have to be in charge. And he's like, well, this isn't eldership. And he's like, why can't you be green? And I said, well, I just assumed that it needed to be a man in a leadership position. And he's like, well, if there was a man who could do it, I would put a man there. But there's no man that can do it. So why can't you do it? And like, hindsight 2020, he essentially told me, like, if a dude shows up and can do it, you're losing your green status. But I took it as like, well, I mean, I can. I'm confident that I can. So I get made green. And then, so that I did all of like the bulletins, all of the stuff I was already doing, right? Like the website, all of that kind of stuff. But then I'm also given the greeters because under the media team, we essentially become like first impressions. So whether on social media or on the website or in person, like whether you're handed a bulletin or someone opens a door for you, whatever, like I'm like the first impression person. And I take all of this stuff that I learned when we went to Georgia, all of this stuff, and I go full-fledged into my green position.
Yeah. Yeah, but I remember now that you're talking that this opened the door for other women to have a say about
Well,
whether they were green or not, which is
so
how we got the other woman as green, because it wasn't going to be her.
well, because I had originally put Bill Nye the Color Guy
Yeah.
over her position. She
Yeah.
ended up being green for outreach.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like, well, no, we can't. He
Well,
can't
because
do that because he has to do this or he has to do this.
Yeah.
So, you know,
well,
and
because
honestly,
this goes back to the eldership thing of like the lady who should have been in charge of outreach has left the church.
yeah, because
And
she should have been
should have
top
been,
pick for an elder.
right, because this isn't an eldership thing. This is just leadership, and that's fine, you know, if there was a man. And so you put the elder that you think could be in charge of outreach. And when you became green, the woman who actually does outreach next to the other lady that we all would have thought, you know, Becky, right? Becky, we would have
Yeah.
thought put Becky there. But this other lady, who's also the same lady that I started the outreach ministry with back when I first started, the lady that came over to my house when I boarded myself, the lady whose sons are friends with Froggy, like this lady threw the biggest fit because she should be in charge of outreach, which likely so, but
Which I don't
remember
know.
that.
I don't know if she threw a fit.
No, she did. I
Like-
just like that's what happened. Because her name wasn't getting put there, but she was doing it all.
Yeah.
She
And
led
so-
all the outreach stuff.
So for our listener,
Remember
when I said there is a man on eldership and he serves, like we're going to call him the serving elder. Okay.
Yeah.
This woman is his wife. They are OG, come as you are people. We have talked about them in different aspects throughout this entire podcast.
Yeah.
And so the way it was presented to me was, well, we can't just have one woman
Yeah.
on green. So who would you be okay if we put her over this? Like, do you think that would be a good fit? And I'm like, yeah, like honestly, if we're throwing the gender thing out the window and it could be anyone, yeah, I would put her there over Bill Nye the Color Guy.
Well, yeah, because some people in the church, these are conversations. See, these are like the commoners conversations, like the ones that didn't happen in the office, the ones that happened amongst the people before things went to you people who sat high and mighty in the office. And because people were like, this is where like splits, I could see how easily splits happen in like church. Because this is where people were like, well, no, it has to be a man, so it should be your husband. And she was like, I'm totally capable. And Amanda's another green level. Women could be the green level. Because Charlotte, like, and she was playing this.
Charlotte didn't like the
thing.
colors.
No, she did not. And she did not. And it was, oh my gosh. And so there was like drama everywhere in this green level.
Well, so we put Barry
Yeah.
over discipleship. So now all of a sudden, Brandy has to answer to Barry for children's ministry.
Yeah.
The youth people have to
Barry-
answer to Barry for youth.
Who doesn't want to serve in children's ministry. All he wants to
Charlotte-
do is preach on a stage, is now in charge of all discipleship.
Charlotte has to answer to
Underneath
Barry. And so people are upset. And this is where like it comes out, like the men in the eldership training, like they're like, he is spiritually immature. He says something and Tom's like, well, actually, no. And he's like, oh yeah, no, that's not what I meant. And then like changes what he said to match Tom. Like he's parroting Tom, and people are like, he has no spiritual backbone. He has no, and like, so people are saying this, and I was like, I know. The man has said he's never read the Old Testament before.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what the F he's talking about.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to be a green because I'm like, okay, at least I don't have honestly, at least I don't have Barry over me trying to tell me what to do. But also I'm like, how is this man getting to do these things?
Yeah.
How? And so, we've talked about how Brandy would stand up for Froggy. And so like she was bringing things up like, well, Froggy's doing this and Barry's not doing anything. And so like it was even arguments within the church office. And so we slowly start implementing these changes, right? Every green is in charge of making changes. And then we would have meetings where so the idea is that you're a green and you have all these ministries under you. You meet with everyone under you, and then all the greens meet with Tom. So then Tom only has to have one meeting with 5 or 6 people.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to have a whole leadership meeting. He doesn't have to listen to all of the stuff. He doesn't care what's going on in children's ministry. He doesn't care what's going on in youth. As long as he knows the person who's in green is going to hold true to the Kool-Aid and is going to hold his standards.
Yeah.
We could do whatever we wanted.
Yeah.
And that's what you said. Like he would constantly be like, well, I don't know, go talk to your green person. Go talk to your green person. Because people were getting frustrated, especially with Barry's group.
Yeah.
And people were getting frustrated.
It was the color system to me was on one hand the best thing ever, right? Because it is 100% what the church needed. Like it needed it. It still needs it. Like there's no question in my mind. Like every church needs a structure. Every organization needs to be held in these type of boundaries, Yeah,
it's an accountability structure is all it was intended to be.
And it was the best thing in the world. And on the other hand, so I think there were some benefits to it that Tom was definitely, reaping the benefit of. Oh, this is nice. Oh, this is what having an accountability structure is like. This is nice. This is good, right? A couple of things though. Number one, like something that never really clicked until really just now as we're talking about this was how awkwardly weird it was to talk to Charlotte about why she wasn't the green.
Yeah.
Because she really was the green. Right. But it's like she would catch herself, like, because she was acting as the green. And
honestly,
she really was the green. But then it was almost like she was being forced to not be the green. And so she'd have to, like, be awkward and catch herself.
Honestly, Charlotte and Old Reliable should have co-greened that group.
Yeah. Yeah. But Old Reliable ended up being in charge of fellowship, which, whatever. And that's what his wife did. And it's great. But so that's one thing that I will say when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, that's very blatantly obvious and you can't dismiss is that there was an ulterior motive to pushing Barry through the system. And like, even to the point that Charlotte was being told to sit down and shut up, essentially, like, mind your place. Like, we have to put him here for our mission. And so even though it is you and you really are in charge, like for showmanship, you have to act like you're really a yellow and not a green. That's how I feel.
Yeah. Well, then the other issue that you had was you had me and the other woman who are made green. We have spent damn near 2 decades at this church trying to put ourselves in a box. She is a very strong, outspoken woman. And she has butted heads with Tom several times over the years. And I didn't always agree with her, but I respected her because of how, like, firm she stood in her beliefs. And all of a sudden, you give these 2 opinionated women the title of a leader, we take that seriously. Because just like Charlotte, we have been doing it this whole time. And I think I'm not going to speak for the other women because of how they left the church. And obviously Charlotte's still there. But for me personally, this was my eye-opening experience of like, why just because I was born a woman why does that negate all of these skills I have? If I was born a man, no one would have batted an eye at me. They wouldn't have called me bossy or controlling or any of those things. So why all of a sudden is it okay because I'm green?
Right.
And so I'm going to lead using my skills because I've finally been given permission to do it.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm leading men, and yes, I'm leading women, and I have all of these teams underneath me, and there was pushback, and I think a lot of that pushback came because I was a woman.
Yeah. Well, and what I was going to say was that the thing about this color system, which was probably the best part ever, is that it exposed
any tiny problem.
The skeletons in the closet. Like because like I said, accountability is great. A structure is great. And if you're trying to put an organization, a healthy organization or any organization into a structure, you're going to see there's going to be growing pains, but for the most part, you're going to see some dramatic positive results, right? Like I've not been a part of an organization other than this one where having a structure and accountability and opening lines of communication was not a good, where I've only worked in organizations where it has been a good thing. And the benefits far outweigh, the growing pains that you have to go through to adjust and move in those systems. But for come as you are, when you are, because the system is so dysfunctional and so toxic because it's a cult, it literally exposed all of the skeletons in the closet, because now you're trying to take toxicity and dysfunction and put it into a healthy accountability system, and certain things aren't fitting into box.
No, and you take someone who is an outside, Chimney was an outside person. Yes, he's been at the church for a few years, but he's not OG come as you are.
No.
And he's already shown that he can stand up and say things against Tom when Tom is wrong. And so we're going to let him peek at the finances, and we're going to let him peek at all of this stuff. So Chimney implements no, we're using all of this stuff. Like I had talked about, we're using, what was it called? That we were planning center. There we go. We were using planning. Well, now we're using it to all of its capability. So we're counting.
Yeah.
There's no more guessing every single week how many people are there. If you're in the sound booth, part of your job is to count how many heads are in the sanctuary.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden Tom can't say, "Oh, we have 300 people in our church." No, excuse me. We went and we can go and look at the numbers.
Yeah.
And
there were 87 people sitting in the chairs.
Yeah, we had 87 people and maybe 40 kids.
Yeah.
So
and that's the thing, the tools and the resources that were being implemented and used to help promote communication, the entire church body was handed tools to communicate with each other.
And we did.
So you can imagine what happened after that. I think this has been probably my most favorite episode that I've been waiting for, because this is, I have said it a million times, not on this podcast because I wasn't allowed to, because we haven't gotten here yet, but it is my humble opinion that it was the color system. It was the color system that did it.
I just think of, that TikTok meme of Will Ferrell, he's typing on a computer and he looks and he's like, "Did that go the way that you thought it was going to?"
Did that go? Did it? No. And this is where, okay, but honestly, this is where, when we've said things in the past and where I come up with, because that's something about doing this podcast, because we are in the know and we're telling a story from being in the know, and then we're trying to tell the story like we were trying to get as much of the as it happened to us into this podcast, which is really hard to do when you already know the outcome. So when you already know that it was this thing, and then you're trying to tell stories in the past, and you're trying to be like, well, this is why I think. These are the types of things that when we would talk about, like, where you're like, it's almost like Tom, as manipulative and diabolical as he was, and as many things he did that were like malicious, you have a hard time really labeling him as some like evil, maniacal, like cult leader who's been planning this out for years. Like we've said before in podcasts, where he was very defensive. Like he was never 3 steps ahead. He did everything in reaction to what was going on. Right. And the reason why we would say things like that, and the reason why I think that, is because when you get to a moment like this, you have to look and be like, if you are 100% fully aware that you're running a cult and that you are doing anything that you really shouldn't be doing, the last thing you're going to do is openly expose that to everybody. It's like, why on earth would the mastermind of this crazy, scheme of a church, why would you openly open your doors and your books to the person sitting across you who wants to call you out for everything, right? To Chimney. Like there's no logical reason that Tom would have intentionally set this up, but he got caught in his own game. He got caught in that defending and responding to where he's like, no, we need elders. Oh no, we need accountability. Let's create a system. And like, you get so caught up in that. And then he ended up getting exposed. So.
Well, and I think some of it too is like, it was like a knee-jerk reaction. Well, fine, you think you can do it? Well, then you could just be over admin. And then he thought Chimney was going to be like every single other person in the history of Come As You Are that would just be like, okay, I'll look at what I want to look at, and then I'll drop the rest and I won't care anymore. And he didn't take into account that like Chimney's thorough.
Yeah.
And he knows his shit.
So did he get cocky? Did he get like, nobody can touch me? Like, you can't touch this, because I've been doing this for 20 something years now.
And I don't know if it was just, he didn't think that.
Is it that arrogant?
Or is it his narcissism that he just cannot see how wrong he is? I don't know.
Or that other people are smart enough to figure it out.
Yeah. I think this is a great conversation to continue over on our Patreon. Because I have more to say. So we're going to end this episode here, and you can meet us over on Patreon.
Burning Butterflies is a listener-supported podcast. Today's episode was brought to you by our amazing supporters on Patreon.
Follow the link in our show notes to learn how you can become a Patreon supporter too. Supporters get exclusive access to bonus content each month, including outtakes, cut content, and supporter-only episodes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating on your listening platform.
Burning Butterflies is a production of Asha Media. Thank you for listening.